October 1946. A woman sits in a Paris cafe with a blank page. She is 38 years old. She wants to write about herself, but the first sentence that forms in her mind stops her cold. I am a woman. 4 words. Simple. But when Simone de Beauvoir writes them down, something breaks. Why does this matter? Why does a man never begin by saying, I am a man? Her pen hovers. The war is over. Paris is recovering. Her teaching license was revoked 3 years earlier. She writes full-time now. She lives in hotel rooms. No children. No marriage. She and Jean-Paul Sartre have been partners for 17 years, but they own nothing together. They sleep with other people. They call it essential love with contingent affairs. Most women in France cannot vote. Universal suffrage only came in 1945. Most women need their husband's permission to open a bank account. She does not. She passed the aggregation in philosophy in 1929. Second place. Sartre took first. She was 21, the youngest woman ever. But now, 17 years later, staring at those 4 words, she realizes she has never asked what they mean. What is a woman? Audrey taught with her at the Lycée in Rouen in the 1930s. Audrey has been furious for years. French women could not vote until 1945. Men made that decision. Audrey convinces her, being a woman is not natural. It is not biology. It is built. She decides to write a short essay, maybe a chapter, something to clear her head before the autobiography. Then she will move on. In October 1946, she outlines the project. The essay expands. She realizes she needs to understand myths first. How have men written about women? What images have they created? She goes to the Bibliothèque Nationale, the National Library on Rue de Richelieu. She sits there for hours, 2 in the afternoon until 5, sometimes longer. The reading room smells like old paper and floor wax. She pulls books, anthropology, biology, psychoanalysis, history, literature, Freud, Levi-Strauss, Hegel. Margaret Mead's Coming of Age in Samoa, published 1928. Bronislaw Malinowski's Sex and Repression in Savage Society, 1927. The Golden Bough by James Fraser, first edition 1890. She reads creation myths, Greek, Roman, Hindu, Christian Genesis. She reads medical texts, theories about hysteria, theories about the womb wandering through the body causing madness. She reads what Aristotle said, woman is a mutilated male. She reads what St. Thomas Aquinas said, woman is defective and misbegotten. She reads what Proudhon said in the 1800s, woman is the desolation of the righteous man. She reads Balzac, Michelet, Monterland, Claudel, D.H. Lawrence. She takes notes on index cards. She fills notebooks. The pattern emerges slowly, then all at once. Men have always defined women as the other, the essential versus the inessential, subject versus object, transcendence versus immanence. Man is the one, woman is the other. This is not biology. This is ideology disguised as nature. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual using sources from the Bibliothèque Nationale de France archival records detailing Beauvoir's research schedule from July 1940 to 1948, including a scholarly article titled Simone de Beauvoir's Existentialism, Freedom, and Ambiguity in the Human World, published in February 2012 by ResearchGate, that documents her daily routine of reading Hegel from 2 to 5 p.m. starting in July 1940, and the 1963 interview collection on the publication of The Second Sex, republished by the Marxist Internet Archive, where Beauvoir herself describes how the book was first conceived almost by chance when wanting to talk about herself, and realizing she first had to describe the condition of woman in general. Now back to the information. January 1947. She boards a plane at Orly. The French government is sponsoring her trip. She will lecture at American universities on the moral problems of the post-war writer. 12 lectures over 4 months. Vassar, Oberlin, Mills College, Harvard. The flight takes 24 hours with stops. She arrives at LaGuardia Airport in New York. The city overwhelms her. So much food, so much light. In Paris, they still have rations. Here the shop windows are full. She travels by train, by bus, by car, 19 states, over 50 cities. She visits Richard Wright in New York. They talk about race, about being the other. Wright wrote Native Son in 1940, Black Boy in 1945. He understands what she's working on. The parallel is clear. White defines itself as the one. Black becomes the other. Man defines himself as the one. Woman becomes the other. She takes notes. He wrote, Never Come Morning in 1942. The man with the golden arm will win the National Book Award 3 years from now. He takes her to a pizzeria, a burlesque show, a jazz club. He knows everyone. It is the best evening she has had in America. They begin an affair. It will last 20 years across 4 continents. She falls in love for the first time in her life. Before this, Love was cerebral. With Algren, it is physical. She learned something. The body is not separate from the mind. Desire is not transcendence or immanence. It is both. This will matter when she writes about women's sexuality, about how philosophy has split the body from consciousness, about how that split has been used to trap women in their biology. She writes it fast. She's thinking about Algren constantly. She's also thinking about women, about myth, about the eternal feminine. The trip to America gives her distance. She can see France more clearly. She can see how women are confined, by law, by custom, by expectation. French women got the vote 2 years ago. Most have never worked outside the home. Marriage is economic survival. Contraception is illegal. Abortion is illegal. Women who have abortions can be guillotined. The law changed after the war, but the stigma remains. She thinks about all the women she knows. Her mother Françoise, her sister Hélène, her students from the lycée, Olga Kozakiewicz, Wanda Kozakiewicz, the women she has loved. What choices did they have? What choices does she have? She has money because she passed the aggregation. She has freedom because she never married. She has no children because she chose not to. But these choices were available only because of specific circumstances. Education, class, Sartre. What about women without those circumstances? The sentences build on each other. The argument unfolds. She divides the project into 2 volumes. Volume 1 will be facts and myths. Volume 2 will be lived experience. She starts with biology. What does science say about women? She reads everything. Hormones, reproduction, menstruation, pregnancy, menopause. The conclusion is clear. Yes, women have different biology, but biology is not destiny. Biology is lived through. It is interpreted. It is given meaning by culture. A woman experiences menstruation differently in a society that considers her unclean versus a society that does not. Pregnancy is not the same for a woman who chose it versus a woman who was forced. Biology is a situation, not a fate. The idea that women are incomplete men, that female sexuality is passive, that women desire to be penetrated because they lack the phallus. She reads Alfred Adler. She reads Karen Horney. She finds some of it useful. The unconscious is real. Childhood shapes us. But Freud's theories are not neutral. They are not discovered facts. They are interpretations shaped by Freud's own assumptions. Freud assumed women envied men. He never asked if men envied women. He never questioned why envy would be the primary emotion. He never considered that women might resist their assigned roles, not because of penis envy, but because those roles are oppressive. Freud naturalized patriarchy. He made it seem inevitable. She rejects this. She. Engels argues that women's oppression began with the invention of private property. Before that, in primitive communism, women and men were equal. Bronze tools, agriculture, surplus. Then men claimed ownership of land, of tools, of women. The family became the economic unit. Women became property. She finds this compelling but incomplete. Engels assumes a golden age that probably never existed. And he does not explain why men were the ones who claimed ownership. Why not women? The answer cannot be physical strength alone. Something else is happening. Women's biology became a prison, not because of biology itself, but because of how societies organized around reproduction. Women were tied to children. Men were free to transcend. This is not natural. This is historical. This is chosen. This can change. She drinks coffee. She smokes. She fills page after page. The book is growing. She realizes it will be much longer than she thought. She does not care. The work has taken over. She's obsessed. Sartre is happy. When his beaver is busy, she's no bother to him. He is working on his own projects. They meet for meals. They discuss their work. But mostly, she writes alone. This is the heart of Volume 1. She reads ancient texts. Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian, the great goddess, Ishtar, Astarte, Isis, Cybele. In primitive societies, the mother goddess ruled. Then something shifted. The father god took over, Zeus, Yahweh. In Greece, goddesses became subordinate. Hera defined by her marriage to Zeus. Athena born from Zeus's head, not a mother. In Christianity, Eve is born from Adam's rib, not from the same clay. And Eve causes the fall. Woman brings sin into the world. This myth has poisoned everything for 2,000 years. The virgin and the whore. Mary is pure because she is desexualized. She's a mother, but not a sexual being. All other women are suspect. Temptresses, dangerous. The church made female sexuality evil. This is not theology. This is social control. This is also oppression. The lady has no agency. She is an object of devotion, a symbol, not a person. She reads Renaissance texts, Italian ladies, Spanish mystics. Teresa of Avila is the exception. She achieved transcendence. She wrote, she acted, she founded convents, she was recognized as a saint. But how many women could do this? 1 in a million. The exception proves the rule. Emile, published 1762. Rousseau says women should be educated to please men. Sophie exists to serve Emile. Kant says women are incapable of abstract thought. Hegel says women are stuck in the particular. Only men can achieve the universal. She reads 19th century writers. Balzac presents women as dangerous, passionate, irrational. Michelet romanticizes women, the eternal feminine, the angel of the hearth, the redeemer through suffering. This is just as bad as Balzac, maybe worse. It sounds like praise, but it is a cage. Proudhon is openly hostile. Woman equals disorder. Montherlant in the 20th century continues this tradition. He writes about women with contempt. Claudel idealizes the virgin. D.H. Lawrence writes about women's sexuality, but always through male fantasy. The pattern repeats. Women are never subjects, always objects. Always defined in relation to men. Daughter, wife, mother, mistress, never simply human. The myth serves their purposes. It justifies their power. If women are naturally nurturing, then men do not have to nurture. If women are naturally emotional, then men can claim reason. If women are naturally passive, then male domination is just the way things are. The myth of woman is the most important weapon of patriarchy. It has served economic interests and social ambitions for thousands of years. She's exhausted. She has been working on this project for almost 2 years, 14 months of intense research and writing, but it feels longer. She takes a break, she travels, she thinks, then she comes back to it. Volume 2, Lived Experience. This is where she will describe women's actual lives. Childhood, adolescence, sexual initiation, the lesbian, the married woman, the mother, the prostitute, the independent woman. She needs to show how the myths shape lived reality, how women internalize oppression, how they are formed into women from birth, how gender is constructed through 1,000 small lessons, pink dresses, dolls, being told to be quiet, to be nice, to not take up space. Boys are encouraged to explore, girls are told to stay close, boys are taught to be brave, girls are taught to be afraid. By adolescence, girls have learned their role. They are objects of desire. Their value depends on their appearance, their virginity, their marriageability. They are taught to please men, to attract men, to keep men. Their own desires are secondary, or non-existent, or shameful. She writes about how myths of romantic love obscure the reality of female sexuality. Women are told they will find fulfillment through love, through marriage, through children. But what actually happens? Marriage is often a trap. The woman loses her name. Her property becomes her husband's. In France in 1948, married women need their husband's permission to work, to travel, to open a bank account. The Napoleonic Code treats women as perpetual minors. She dissects this. The law is not neutral. It is not protecting women. It is controlling them. A woman who admits she does not want children is considered unnatural, selfish, incomplete. A woman who has children but does not find it fulfilling is considered a bad mother. The myth serves a purpose. If women believe motherhood is natural and fulfilling, they will accept the sacrifice. They will accept being tied to the home. They will accept economic dependence. They will not demand equality. The myth keeps women in their place. If you value this kind of deep research into existential feminist philosophy, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy article on Simone de Beauvoir, published August 17, 2004, detailing how she spent 14 months between 1946 and 1949 researching and writing The Second Sex, and from Judith Thurman's introduction to the 2009 English translation of The Second Sex, which describes the 800-page encyclopedia of folklore, customs, laws, history, religion, philosophy, anthropology, literature, economic systems, and received ideas that objectified women and was composed while Beauvoir was also engaged with other literary projects, traveling widely, editing Les Temps Modernes, and juggling her commitments. Now back to the information. They are made. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This sentence will become the most famous line in the book. It will define second-wave feminism. It will create the distinction between sex and gender. But when she writes it, she is just trying to capture what she has learned. Biology is sex. Gender is social. A female infant is born with a body. But that body does not determine who she becomes. Culture determines that. Language determines that. Law determines that. Family determines that. School determines that. Every interaction determines that. From the moment a baby is born and someone says it is a girl, the process of becoming begins. Pink blanket, soft toys, gentle handling, do not cry, be nice, smile. These lessons accumulate. By age 5, the girl knows her role. By age 10, she is policing herself. By adolescence, she is performing femininity without thinking. It feels natural, but it is not. It is learned, deeply learned, so deeply that it feels like biology. But it is not biology. It is culture. And what is learned can be unlearned. This is the hope. This is the possibility. This is why she is writing this book. Woman is defined in relation to man, not in herself. Man defines woman by all the qualities she lacks: rationality, strength, courage, independence. These are coded male. Woman gets the opposite: emotion, weakness, fear, dependence. This is not description. This is prescription. This is how patriarchy maintains itself, by making women internalize their own oppression, by making them believe they are naturally inferior, naturally suited to domestic life, naturally fulfilled by serving others. The trick is to make oppression look like nature, to make history look like biology, to make choices that benefit men look like inevitable facts. This is what the myth does. It naturalizes the social. It makes contingent arrangements seem eternal, the eternal feminine. But there is nothing eternal about it. It is historical. It changes. It can change again. She writes that women have colluded in their own oppression, not because they want to be oppressed, but because they lack the concrete means to resist. Economic independence requires education and work, but most women cannot get education, cannot get work. Or if they work, they are paid half what men earn. They need marriage to survive. So they accept the terms. They internalize the role. They teach their daughters the same lessons. This is not a moral failing. This is strategic survival. But it perpetuates the system. Breaking it requires more than individual resistance. It requires structural change, legal change, economic change, cultural change. It requires women to recognize their situation, to refuse the myth, to claim their subjectivity, to demand transcendence. This is possible now in 1948, more possible than ever before, but it is still difficult. The independent woman faces hostility. She is accused of stealing jobs from men. She is called masculine, unnatural, a bad woman. She is caught between two worlds. If she succeeds in traditionally male fields, she is resented. If she fails, it is proof that women cannot do the work. She has to be twice as good to be considered half as competent. And even if she succeeds, she faces another problem. Who will she love? Men are threatened by successful women. They prefer women who make them feel superior. So the independent woman often ends up alone, or compromising, or exhausted from managing both career and home while her male partner does neither. The solution is not for women to become like men. That is not liberation. The solution is for both men and women to recognize each other as free and as other. Mutual recognition, mutual respect. Neither subject nor object, both subjects. This is the goal. This is what liberation looks like. Sexual difference would remain. Women would still give birth. Men would still have different bodies. But those differences would not determine destiny. They would not justify hierarchy. Women would participate in production, in politics, in art, in science, in philosophy, on equal terms, not as exceptions, not as tokens, as half of humanity. Men would participate in domestic life, in child rearing, in care work, not as helpers, as equals. The division between public and private would dissolve. The distinction between transcendence and immanence would dissolve. All humans would have access to both, work and home, freedom and connection. This is not utopia, this is justice. This is what should be, what could be, what will be. If women refuse the myth, if men abandon their privilege, if society reorganizes around equality instead of domination. She finishes in early 1949. The manuscript is 800 pages, 2 volumes. She has been working on it for 2.5 years, 14 months of intense daily work. But the thinking behind it took longer. It took 38 years of living as a woman in a world made by men. It took growing up in a bourgeois Catholic family. It took losing her father's approval when she rejected religion at age 14. It took studying philosophy at the Sorbonne. It took teaching girls at the lycée and watching them accept their diminishment. It took Sartre telling her she had a man's brain and her accepting that as a compliment until she realized it was an insult. It took Colette Audrey saying, "French women deserve the vote." It took Richard Wright talking about being black in white America. It took Nelson Algren showing her desire is not transcendence or immanence, but both at once. It took thousands of hours in the library reading what men have written about women. It took seeing the pattern, the repetition, the myth. And it took one moment, one realization, one sentence that unlocked everything. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Chapters start appearing in Les Temps Modernes in May 1949. Woman's sexual initiation in May. The lesbian in June. Maternity in July. The reactions are immediate. Scandal, outrage. The Vatican puts the book on the index of forbidden books. Conservative papers call her a pornographer. Communists mock her. François Mauriac writes to the editor of Les Temps Modernes saying, "Now I know everything about your boss's vagina." She expected controversy. She did not expect this level of fury, but she also does not expect what comes next. Women write to her, thousands of letters. Women from France, from Europe, from America eventually. They write to say thank you. They write to say you described my life. They write to say I thought I was alone. They write to say now I understand. The book sells 22,000 copies in the first week in France. It will be translated into English in 1953. That translation will be severely cut, over 140 pages removed, critical sections mistranslated. But even the bad translation will change everything. Betty Friedan will read it in the 1950s and write The Feminine Mystique in 1963. Kate Millett will read it. Shulamith Firestone will read it. Germaine Greer will read it. The second wave of feminism will build on this foundation, and the sentence everyone remembers, the sentence that becomes shorthand for everything: one is not born, but rather becomes, a woman. Being a woman has been her situation, her limit, her identity. She has lived around it, she has worked despite it, she has succeeded in spite of it, but she has never asked what it is, what it means, why it matters, and in that moment of asking, everything shifts. Because the question reveals that being a woman is not a fact, it is a question, and if it is a question, it has answers, plural, not one essential truth, but many contingent realities. Not biology, but history. Not nature, but culture. Not destiny, but choice. The question opens a space, a gap between the body she was born with and the person she has become. That gap is where freedom lives. That gap is where change is possible. She picks up her pen. She keeps writing. And 2.5 years later, she will have answered the question in 800 pages. But the answer is already there in the first moment. In the pause between writing, I am a woman, and asking what that means. In that pause, she sees what no one has seen before, or what everyone has seen, but no one has said. Being a woman is not a given. It is an achievement, a construction, a becoming. And if women become women, then they can become something else. They can become free. They can become subjects. They can become themselves. She sits alone in her hotel room. The manuscript is nearly complete. She lights a cigarette. She thinks about Algren in Chicago. She thinks about Sartre working in his apartment across Paris. She thinks about her mother, about her sister, about all the women who will never read this book, about all the women who will. She knows it will be controversial. She knows men will hate it. She does not know yet that women will love it. She does not know it will become a founding text. She does not know her name will be synonymous with feminism for the next 70 years. She only knows she has written something true, something necessary, something that had to be said. She turns to the conclusion. One more page, one more paragraph, one more sentence. Then she will be done. Then the world will have this book. Then women will have this book. And everything will be different. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually, inevitably. Because once you see the myth, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand that gender is constructed, you cannot forget it. Once you know that women are made, not born, you cannot go back to believing in natural femininity. The mask falls, the performance becomes visible, and when that happens, change becomes possible. Not certain, but possible. And possibility is everything. She stubs out her cigarette. She writes the final lines. She puts down her pen. Outside, Paris is dark. It is 1948. The war ended 3 years ago. The reconstruction continues. France is rebuilding. Women got the vote 3 years ago, but they still need permission to work, permission to travel, permission to control their own money. That will change. This book will help change it, not alone, but as part of a wave. A movement that is already beginning, that will crest in the 1960s and 70s, that will continue into the next century. She does not know this yet, but she senses it. She feels it. She has thrown a stone into water. The ripples are spreading. They will reach shores she cannot imagine. Women she will never meet, girls not yet born. They will read this book. They will understand their situation. They will refuse the myth. They will claim their freedom. They will become subjects, not because Simone de Beauvoir told them to, but because Simone de Beauvoir showed them how, showed them that gender is historical, that oppression is structural, that liberation is possible, showed them the gap between being and becoming. And in that gap, freedom. In that gap, choice. In that gap, hope. A lifetime of thinking. She gathers the pages. She will send them to Gallimard in the morning. Tomorrow the book will belong to the world, but tonight it is still hers. Tonight she can still revise, still add, still cut. She does not. She knows it is done. She knows it is good. She knows it is right. She pours a drink. She sits by the window. She looks out at the Paris night. Somewhere out there, a girl is learning to be feminine. Learning to smile. learning to please, learning that her desires do not matter, learning that her body is not hers, learning that her future is marriage, motherhood, service, learning the myth, becoming a woman. And in 20 years, maybe 30, that girl will pick up a book, The Second Sex, the Deuxième Sex, and she will read one sentence. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. And something will break, some lie will crack, some spell will lift, and she will see, she will understand, she will know. She's not born this way, she became this way. And what she became, she can unbecome. She can become something else, someone else, herself. And that will change everything for her, for the women around her, for the women who come after, the ripples spreading outward, forever. 38 years old, no husband, no children, no home, just a hotel room, a typewriter, a manuscript, a life built on her own terms. She is not the woman her mother wanted her to be, not the woman the church told her to be, not the woman society expected. She is something else. She became something else. And tomorrow, when this book enters the world, other women will see the possibility. Will see that they too can become something other than what they were told to be. This is not freedom yet, but it is the map, the method, the proof that another way exists, that women can be subjects, that women can transcend, that women can be fully human, not someday, now, here, despite everything, because of everything, in the face of everything that says it is impossible. It is possible. She proved it, and now she has written the proof. 800 pages, a testament, a manifesto, a weapon, the myth of woman exposed, the eternal feminine dismantled, the cage unlocked, the door open. All that remains is for women to walk through. And they will. Not all at once. Not easily, but they will. Because now they know. They can see. The emperor has no clothes. The myth is just a myth. And women are not born. They become. And if they become, they can become anything. Everything. Themselves, at last. Finally, free.